Today, we continue the story of Wrong Turn series with the sixth movie, which I believe is the most exciting one in the entire franchise. The story takes place in a forest in West Virginia, where a couple is riding their bikes. The woman takes her boyfriend to an open-air hot spring, a place she discovered when she was a child. When the boyfriend sees it, he thinks it would be inappropriate not to take a dip, as no one else is around, and it's a perfect opportunity to bond. Just as they are getting cozy, a cannibal from the woods is secretly watching them. Once they finish and get dressed, they head back. The cannibal follows them closely, and while the couple is speeding along, suddenly the boyfriend is shot down by an arrow fired by the cannibal. At this point, they realize something is wrong. They get up and try to escape, but the cannibal shoots the boyfriend in the head with a bow and arrow. The woman, seeing this, has no time to think and turns to flee on her bike. Unfortunately, she triggers the cannibal's trap, and her eyes get caught in a barbed wire. The three cannibal brothers then pull the wire tight, and with a swift motion, they decapitate her. Meanwhile, the male protagonist, Danny, is driving with his girlfriend Tony, heading to the mountains, accompanied by their friend Vic. The reason for this trip is that Danny recently learned some family news from a nearby mountain village, and there is a large estate that Danny is supposed to inherit. There are 4 other people with them: Rod, Brian, Jillian, and Charlie, who had a car breakdown on the way and couldn't catch up with Danny's vehicle. The scene shifts to the estate, where the hostess, Sally, is made up and waiting for Danny's arrival, along with the master of the estate, Jackson. They are siblings and Danny's cousins. The family has a tradition of incestuous breeding, believing it ensures pure bloodlines for their descendants. The problem is that most of the family members are deformed, so they turn to Danny, a normal person, to continue the bloodline. Sally says she can't wait and is eager to have an intimate conversation with Danny. Soon, Danny and his group arrive at the secluded and mysterious Hobb Springs estate. Although old, the estate still exudes elegance and grandeur. Sally's eyes light up when she sees Danny. As they're talking, Danny's 4 friends arrive, and with everyone gathered, Jackson gives them a tour of the estate. The group is shocked by the lavishness of the estate, which is located deep in the mountains. Then they head to the dining room where a single lunch is prepared. Jackson says he didn't expect so many people, so he will prepare more food and asks the group to take a rest. Once they leave, the group starts to have some disagreements. Brian feels that the place feels eerie and unlikely that Danny would inherit the estate so easily. He urges Danny to leave, but Danny refuses, unwilling to waste his chance at a better life, especially since this is his only family. The estate, rich in history, could bring unexpected surprises. Tony and Vic also agree, seeing it as a vacation for a few days. In the end, the majority convinces Danny to stay. The estate is now a hot springs hotel, and besides Danny's group, there are other guests. A woman, freshly made up and heading out for a date, is suddenly impaled by an axe thrown at her while walking down the hall. It's Jackson who attacked her because Agnes flirted with him that morning, and fearing she might disrupt his plans, he decided to eliminate her. Meanwhile, Danny and his group find an outdoor hot spring, where Danny and Tony start showing affection, which makes Sally feel jealous. After having fun, Jackson assigns rooms to everyone, and the evening begins to fall. Later that night, Jackson heads to the back of the estate, where the Cannibal brothers, having escaped from the previous movie, find their true family. Jackson scolds them for being too obvious and warns them to tone it down. He tells them not to harm Danny and his friends for now, as they will soon have their chance to hunt them. The next morning, Jillian and Brian head to the local store to shop and notice a number of missing person posters on the bulletin board. A police officer approaches and posts another announcement. Agnes, who went to the neighboring estate, has disappeared. They chat with the sheriff, who gives them some flyers, hoping that someone might recognize her once they return. Meanwhile, Danny discovers a pile of photos showing the entire family history, and all the people in the pictures look eerily similar. Strangely, in one group photo, someone has their head covered by a bag. Jackson interrupts their conversation and takes them to a weapons room filled with various guns. The most intriguing item for Danny is a bow, which Jackson says belonged to his grandfather, a skilled hunter. Seeing Danny's fascination with the bow, Jackson takes him outdoors to teach him how to hunt. Soon, a prey animal appears, and Danny hits the target with an arrow. This event sets Danny on a new path. However, unbeknownst to Danny, it's not him, but Three Finger, who killed the police officer at the same time. The officer struggles briefly before being taken out. Back with Danny, Jackson hands him a knife and tells him to finish off the deer. Though it sounds brutal, he tells Danny that if he wants to inherit the family business, he must accept the traditions. Danny kills the deer with a single stroke, and the blood splatter gives him a thrill he's never felt before. Meanwhile, Vic is worried about Danny and goes looking for him in the back of the estate. He stumbles upon Sawtooth eating the dead deer, and in fear he tries to run away. He accidentally bumps into Danny and the two of them tumble down the hill. Danny also accidentally triggers one of the cannibal traps and gets his leg caught in a blade. Vic attempts to find help, but Jackson arrives and takes them back. Once back, Sally tends to Danny's injury. Her already restless nature is now heightened, and she begins to flirt with Danny, using seductive language. Danny is tempted, and just as they are about to get closer, Tony walks in, interrupting the moment and creating an awkward atmosphere. Sally had no choice but to make an excuse to take care of Vic and left. After she left, Danny and Tony became more intimate. Sally, who was outside the door, was becoming more and more tempted. At breakfast, Danny planned his future life at the estate, suggesting that Rod promote it online and Vic write a book about it, forming a business chain. This way, more people would know about the estate and they could make more money. He then assigned Brian the task of drafting a business plan. However, Jillian was not happy about this, and when she got back to her room, she had an argument with Brian. She said they should return to the city, but Brian replied that he came here to help Danny, and they argued fiercely. In a fit of anger, he knocked Jillian's bag to the ground. To everyone's surprise, a sculpture fell out, which Jillian had secretly packed because she knew it was valuable. There were many such sculptures in the estate, and no one would notice if one was sold in the city, making a lot of money. When Brian heard this, he was stunned and stopped arguing. He immediately asked Jillian to show him the other sculptures. In the sculpture room, Brian discovered a secret passage leading to the basement. Both of them were curious and went down. They found a circular corridor with 2 levels resembling an altar, and in the middle was a strange chair. Jillian, who was well versed in such things, immediately recognized the chair was meant for play. As she sat on it, Brian suddenly realized what it was for. Before they could think more, Jillian became excited, pulling Brian close for some intimate interaction. Sally, hiding nearby, was itching with desire. Suddenly, one eye appeared behind them. Then, Three Finger used a knife to finish off Jillian. Just as he was about to deal with Brian, Sally stopped him, saying they should wait. She told them to take Jillian and leave quickly. As for Brian, she would handle him herself, taking him back to the bedroom. After some intimate interaction, Jackson entered, telling Sally she should conserve her strength for later, so she wouldn't be exhausted. But Sally said she couldn't hold back anymore. Danny was in front of her, but out of reach, which made her feel very frustrated. Jackson replied, "Don't rush. Tonight, we'll start the ceremony." Seeing that Brian was done for, Sally smothered him with a pillow. Meanwhile, Tony and the others were making plans for the estate. Vic suggested finding something iconic to attract visitors and went out alone to search. During his search, he discovered several suitcases with names he recognized from missing persons reports, including Agnes, which matched the one from earlier. He was then drawn to Jackson and Sally, who were talking to Danny about showing him their large family that evening. Later that night, Jackson and Sally took Danny to the back mountain. Vic, worried about the danger, followed them secretly. They arrived at a small village filled with deformed people. After sitting down, Jackson began recounting the family's history. He said that long ago 3 families came to this place, and after many years of war, their family emerged victorious and claimed the land. As he spoke, Jackson poured Danny a glass of homemade red wine, telling him that drinking it would officially make him part of the family. But after Danny drank it, he suddenly felt a wave of bloodlust. Jackson explained that they killed innocent people because they trespassed on their land, weakened the family, and contaminated their bloodline. To preserve their pure bloodline, they only allowed incestuous marriages. Since Jackson was unable to bear children, he sought Danny for this purpose. Danny was confused, and before he could react, Sally suddenly kissed him. Vic, who had been watching from behind, was spotted by Sawtooth and was captured, taken to the village. Panicked, Vic kept calling out to Danny, who felt a strange sense of familiarity with him. Jackson told him, "You're drunk, you don't know him," successfully brainwashing Danny and dismissing Vic's life as unimportant. Then, Three Finger used a knife to deal with Vic. The blood flowing excited the deformed villagers. Sally took a bowl to catch the blood and also filled a bowl for Danny. In his dazed state, Danny drank it without thinking. Later, under Sally's temptation, they became intimately involved, completing the ceremony. The next morning, Danny, still drunk, returned to the estate. Tony noticed he seemed like a different person, his words now harsh and demanding. Danny said he just wanted to sleep and didn't want to be disturbed. Charlie smelled something strange and followed the scent to the kitchen, where he found Jackson cooking. To his horror, the ingredients were human flesh. Terrified, the group ran and hid in a corner. Then they saw Vic's severed head in the fridge, completely freaking them out. They tried to escape again, but they ran into the three brothers, and Charlie bravely held off Sawtooth, grabbing a dumbbell to fight back. But his attack was futile against the cannibals. Sawtooth and One Eye restrained him, and Three Finger forced a water pipe into his mouth, continuously forcing water into him. Charlie struggled, but the three brothers kept flooding him from below until his stomach exploded. Meanwhile, Tony and Rod were almost at the door when Tony suddenly had a breakdown, insisting on returning to find Danny. Rod tried to stop her, but she ran back alone. She went to the armory to grab a shotgun, preparing for a final showdown. Rod also went looking for Danny, but encountered Three Finger along the way. In a panic, Rod stepped into a trap. He managed to stay quiet as he was dragged into the hallway where the chains caught him. One quick slash and he was finished. Tony, holding the gun, found the basement and encountered Sally. Sally taunted her about last night's intimate moment with Danny. Tony became enraged and struck Sally with the butt of the gun. This infuriated Sally, and the two began to fight. Sally tried to submerge Tony's face in boiling water, but Tony quickly countered and slammed Sally's face into the water, burning it. Tony then grabbed the gun again and shot Sally twice, though neither shot was fatal. Just as she was about to shoot a third time, Danny appeared and stopped her, angrily shouting, This is my family, why are you doing this? He said, I'm not the same as before. If you don't want to get hurt, leave now. But Tony refused, saying, If you don't leave, I won't either. As they argued, Jackson appeared from behind and held Tony hostage. Seeing Sally injured, he was about to kill Tony, but Danny, remembering their past, begged Jackson to treat Sally's wounds and let him handle Tony. In a moment of weakness, Danny let Tony go. Jackson, seeing this, quickly pounced on her, but Tony grabbed a key from his waist and stabbed him in the face until he stopped breathing. Seeing this, Danny lost it. Just when I found my family, you made me lose them. As he spoke, the three brothers appeared and finished Tony off from behind with knives. Soon after, the Hot Springs estate opened, and Danny became the owner. He met a woman and asked her how the food was. She said it was delicious. When Danny entered the kitchen, he saw the three brothers grinding meat. I won't say what kind of meat it was. Then they went to the basement, where Danny called the three brothers to observe his and Sally's intimate moment to ensure the family line continued. The movie ends here.